Hello, Linda.
Hello?
How are you?
I'm not feeling too good right now.
Could you please turn on your video?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Welcome to the Global Virtual Summit 2026, Linda. Yeah, before going to a session, I would like to introduce you to our audience. Dr. Linda Burns, professionally known as the Success Doctor, is a faith-driven business developer, AI consultant, and founder, CEO. Sorry, Linda, just a technical issue. Dr. Linda Burns, professionally known as the Success Doctor, is a faith driven business developer, AI consultant, and founder and CEO of Chai Hill QHQ. She empowers mission driven women to build fundable, scalable, and faith aligned businesses through strategic consulting, access to capital, and AI powered solutions. Through her speaking, leadership, and entrepreneurship programs, Dr. Linda equips women to create sustainable businesses that generate lasting impact and legacy. That was a fantastic bio, Dr. Linda, and the stage is all yours.
Good day, we win. Redefining boundaries, empowering women, inspiring influence. Let me say that again. We are redefining boundaries, empowering women, and inspiring influence. I want to be honest with you about something. Influence is not the boundary I came here to talk about because most of the women in this room already have influence. You have the following, you have the platform, and you have the voice people lean in to hear when you talk. If influence was the missing piece, half of you wouldn't be sitting in this room today. You would already be exactly where you're trying to go. The boundary I want to redefine with you today is a different one. It's the boundary between what you are anointed to build and what you have actually built a structure to hold. Let me ask you something before I say another word. I want you to answer this within yourself. If a lender, a partner, or an investor asks to see your business paperwork tomorrow, not your Instagram, not your testimonials, your actual paperwork, what would they see? And would it match what you've been telling people you're building? A lot of women in the room, like this one, the honest answer is no. Not because the calling isn't real, because nobody ever taught you the architecture that makes it provable. I am Dr. Linda Barnes, also known as the Success Doctor. I'm a faith driven business developer and also a business loan broker. And for the next couple of minutes, I want to hand you the blueprint I wish somebody had handed me before I lost everything the first time. The talk is called Faith Built It, Structure Funds It. So let's get into it. Here's where I want to start because I think it's the sentence most of the women in this room are quietly living inside of right now. Anointing attracts, architecture funds. You see, anointing is what gets you the stage. It's what gets you the DMs that say, I need what you have. It what fills the room, grows the list, gets the branded deals, gets the invitation to speak at a summit, something like this. But anointing was never designed to carry the weight of what it attracts. Architecture is what carries the weight, and most gifted women have more anointing than they have architecture. I want to say that again because it's the whole talk in one sentence. Most gifted women have more anointing than they have architecture. That gap is not a character flaw. It is not a discipline problem. It is a structural one. And structural problems require structural solutions, not more hustle, not more content, not more hours in the day nobody is giving you back. I know that gap personally because I've lived on both sides of it. Before I ever stood on a stage like this one, I built a multi-million dollar mental health business, case management, counseling programs, community development work that mattered, work that changed lives, work I was genuinely called to do. The anointing was real, and for years, it was producing exactly what it should. And then I watched it collapse in a matter of months. Look, I had a contracted employee that committed fraud. You see, I had just restructured my business because I was experiencing exponential growth. Knowing that the structure that I had could not hold the weight of the income and revenue that I was bringing in, I dove into restructuring the business, restructured it. But that paperwork was not filed on time and fell between a gap of my employee committing fraud, me becoming a full mental health hospital and paperwork being processed, and also me restructuring my business. Because little do you know, a single member LLC is not real protective structure. It is still tied to you personally. And if you get caught in any type of fraud, any type of legal cases, or anything surrounding anything, any cases that could be filed back to the company, it is ultimately linked back to you personally. So I just want you to understand this was not a business I built carelessly. I had poured over and over years into this. And because the architecture underneath it wasn't strong enough to survive one bad person, one bad employee, or one bad complaint, or one misfiling, I lost everything I had built. I'm not telling you this so you feel sorry. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand something specific. My business did not collapse because my calling wasn't real. It collapsed because the calling had no architecture holding it up. I had anointing, I did not have the structure. And when the pressure came, and pressure always comes, the things that were supposed to carry my life's work had nothing underneath it to catch the fall. I would bet almost every woman here has felt some version of what I felt watching my life's work fall apart without nothing to catch it. You've watched a launch you poured 6 months into produce a wave of DMs and zero systems to actually convert them. You've watched your revenue grow faster than your bank accounts could separate. Personal and business tangled into one account, one identity, one point of failure. You've watched an opportunity, a partnership, a piece of capital walk right up to you and turn around and leave because when they asked to see the structure behind the influence, there wasn't one to show them. That's the same gap I lived. Different chapter, same lesson. And here's the good news. I rebuild. In the first year after started over, I scaled my husband's construction company to over 7 figures. Not because the anointing came back stronger. It was never the anointing that was missing. It's because this time I built the architecture first. Anointing attracts, the architecture funds. Hold on to that because everything else I say for the rest of this talk builds on that one sentence. So let's talk about why this happens to gifted women over and over again, because it is not random. It is not a coincidence. And it is definitely not a lack of anointing or purpose. Most purpose-driven businesses stay unfunded for the same three reasons. I have sat across from hundreds of women running seven-figure ideas out of six-figure, five-figure structures. And it is always one of these three. I want to name all three plainly because you cannot fix what you will not name out loud. One, there's no separation between her and the business. She is the business. Her personal bank account is the business account. Her personal credit is the only credit the business has ever used, which means the business has no financial identity of its own. It cannot build credit. It cannot qualify for capital on its own. It can only ever borrow against her. Quick gut check. If something was supposed to happen to you tomorrow, could your business keep operating without you personally logging into your bank accounts or your accounts? If the honest answer is no, that's point one. And that's not a compliment to your work ethic. That's a structural risk. Number two, there's no documentation, no operation agreement, no use of funds plan, no financial statements a lender can actually sit down and read. She has a beautiful brand, gorgeous website, testimonials, and a blank folder where the actual paperwork should be. When opportunity finally comes, whether that's a lender, an investor, or a strategic partnership, she has nothing to give them but a pitch and a prayer. Number three, there's no entity built to hold what she's actually building. A lot of women in this room are not running one businesses. They're not running one business. You're running a ministry, a marketplace offer, or and a mission-driven project. Sometimes all three. Stuff inside one single member LLC that was never designed to hold all of it. That's not structure. That's a junk drawer with a beautiful logo on it. Here's the truth. Vision boards will never tell you. And honestly, most coaches in this industry will never tell you either. Vision boards don't get funded. Businesses do. A lender does not fund your vision. A lender funds documentation, structure, and a business that looks on paper like the things it is saying that it's doing and becoming. I want to say one more thing plainly because I think a lot of you in this room have been quietly taught to be ashamed of even wanting this. Profit is the opposite of purpose. Broke profits can't fund the mission. You cannot pour out of a structure that was never built to hold anything in the first place. So if you've been operating one entity with no separation, no documentation, hear me clearly. Your calling is not underfunded. It is understructured. Those are two very different problems, and only one of them gets solved by working harder. So what does architecture actually look like? Let me show you what I actually build for myself and what I now teach women to build for their own empires. I call it the Trinity structure. It has three tiers, and I want to walk you through all three because this is a part of the talk I actually want you taking notes. You see, tier one, the trust, this one is optional at the start of your build and is essential later on. This is the generational layer. It holds ownership at the highest level. It protects the family and it outlives the operator. Most women skip this tier when they're first building, and that's fine. That's appropriate actually. But mature operators come back for it once there's something real worth protecting for the next generation. We have tier two, which is a holding and or parent company. This is a tier almost nobody builds, and it is the tier that changes everything. You see, when you have a holding or parent company, they own your operating businesses. It holds your brand, your intellectual property, your equipment, your intercompany structures. It builds its own credit history, completely separate from your personal credit. This is the piece that lets a lender look at your business and see an asset with its own track record, not a personal with a good story. Now, tier three, your operating businesses, plus your mission or nonprofit arm. This is where the actual work lives, your day to day operation. And I want to break this tier into three working arms because this is the part women in this room are usually already living without realizing it's a structure. You have one arm is marketplace. Your for-profit offers, this has your consulting business, your products, your services, the revenue engine. Arm two is the mission, the work that serves people in a measurable way and also produces its own income, like a counseling practice or community development programs or educational programs. Arm three is the ministry, the part of your calling that were never meant to carry a price tag, but often the piece that runs through a nonprofit. Here's what almost nobody teach you. Those three arms are not supposed to compete with each other for your time or for your money or for funding or income. In a properly built structure, your marketplace arm funds your mission and your ministry. One clean structure, three purposes, one direction, and one flow. Here is why it matters more than almost anything else I could teach you today. A sole proprietor or a single member LLC with one Tango bank account can only ever borrow against itself with your own personal credit, your own personal risk, your personal ceiling. A woman with a Trinity structure entity has separation, documentation, a holding court or a parent court with its own, a business credit profile a lender will actually say yes to at a ceiling her personal credit alone could never reach. That is the actual difference between faith built it and structure funds it because faith gets you the assignment. Structure is what makes the assignment bankable. And I want you to picture the women 2 seats down from you right now that has the exact anointing to change an industry, but every dollar she makes runs through one shared account with her personal name, no one else's, no documentation trail, no separation. That woman is one bad season away from what happened to me. Not because her calling is weak, but because her structure was never built to hold what her calling was going to attract. You see, money flows through this architecture the same way it flowed through mine when I rebuilt from zero. My marketplace business funded my mission. The mission strengthens the ministry, produces the next assignment. It is not three separate lanes competing for your attention and your energy. It is one structure doing exactly what structures are built to do. It is holding the weight without collapsing under it. That's the blueprint. Trust, holding and parent company, operating and mission. Faith built it, structure funds it. Now I want to talk to you about money, specifically 5 paths that open up when your structure is actually in place. Most women in the funding conversation think funding means one thing, a loan or financing. You go to a bank, you ask for money, they say yes or no, and that's end of story. That is the narrowest possible definition of capital, and it is the definition that keeps gifted women underfunded while opportunity is sitting right in front of them in 4 other forms they never even considered. I want to name all 5 because when you build the Trinity structure that I just showed you, every single one of these becomes available to you in a way it cannot be when you are operating as a tangled sole proprietor single member LLC with no documentation and no separation. You see, one is cash flow. This is the one everybody skips because it doesn't feel like funding. It doesn't have an application. Nobody approves it. And that is exactly why it's the most powerful pathway today. Cash flow is your business generating and keeping its own money, not your money, the business's money. When you have entity separation, your business revenue stays inside the business. It builds in the business account and becomes the asset a lender looks at when they evaluate you. Most women are running profitable ideas through a personal account, mixing everything together if they have a business account, and wondering why a lender looks at their business financials and see nothing or say no. You cannot build a cash flow story for your business if the business and your household are sharing the same funds. The first move in the funding conversation is not applying for anything, it is opening a dedicated business account in the business name and letting the business build its own financial track record. 12 months of consistent deposits into a business account, not mixing your personal expenses. Even with modest deposits, tells a story a lender can actually read. Cash flow is also your most sustainable source of capital. It does not have to be repaid. It does not dilute your ownership. It does not come with the lender's terms or a grant committee's agenda. It is yours. Build it first before you go looking anywhere else. Number two, grants. A grant is money you do not pay back. Listen. And there is far more of it available to women-owned, faith-based, mission-driven, and community-focused businesses than most of the women know or have ever been told exists. Business grants are available at the federal level, state level, local level, through foundations, through corporations with supplier diversity programs, through faith-based development organizations, and through community development, financial institutions. There are grants specifically for women-owned businesses. There are grants specifically for minority-owned businesses. There are grants specifically for businesses operating in underserved communities, which many of you in this room are. Here is the catch, and I want to say it plainly because I have watched too many women chase grants before they were ready. Grants follow structure. A grant committee is not going to fund a business that cannot produce a tax return, an operating agreement, or a use of funds plan. The paperwork they require is exactly the documentation your Trinity structure already required you to build, which means the women who do the structural work first or a rebuild are also the women who can actually access the grant dollars when the window opens. If you have never taken 30 minutes to research what grants are available in your state for women-owned businesses in your industry, that is your homework from this session. Not next month. Try searching this week. Now, number three, financing. This is where I live professionally, so I want to speak to it carefully and honestly. Financing is borrowed capital. It's loans, lines of credit, revenue-based financing, SBA programs, equipment financing. It is borrowed capital. It is not a bad thing. You see, borrowed capital used strategically inside a structured business is the tool that lets you scale faster than your cash flow alone could take you. But hear me on this. Financing without structure is actually debt. It is not a bridge, it is a burden. So when a woman comes to me with a great idea, a strong calling, and no entity separation, no business credit, no documentation, I cannot help her the way I want to help her. The lenders in my network are looking at her business on paper, and there's nothing on paper to look at. So when the structure is in place, the conversation changes completely. You see a holding or parent company with its own credit profile, or even a regular corporation, separates her from her personal credit, can qualify for capital at a ceiling her personal credit alone could not ever reach. Business lines of credit equipment financing, SBA backed programs with longer terms and lower rates. You see revenue based financing tied to the business's actual deposits. These are all available to a structured business that they are simply not available to a personality with a pitch or a single member LLC or a sole proprietor. I work with a network of over 500 lending partners. Funding outcomes always depend on the qualifications, the documentation, the credit profile, the entity structure, and each individual's lending criteria. I say that every time. I will not sell you a dream about funding. I can tell you this, that I have helped women access funding from $5,000 up to past $300,000, not because they had the biggest dream in the room, but because they had the documentation to back up what their ideas and dream and business actually possessed. Number four, government contracting. This is one of the most nobody is talking about in spaces like this one, and it is the one with the most untapped potential for women in business. The federal government is the largest purchaser of goods and services in the world. Every year, billions of dollars in contracts are set aside specifically for small businesses, women owned businesses, and businesses in historically underutilized zones. Those dollars have to go somewhere. Right now, they're going to businesses with the structure to claim them. Government contracting is not just for construction companies or defense contractors, counseling services, or community development programs. They are for consulting, training, and education, healthcare services, administrative and management support. So if your business provides a service, there is a government agency that will buy that service. The entry point is a registration at sam.gov, the system for award management. It is free to register and it requires a legal entity, an EIN, and basic business documentation, which means, again, the women who have done the structural work are the women who can walk through this door. And I'm not going to tell you government contracting is fast or simple. It is not, but I will tell you that a single government contract can generate more revenue than most of my clients have ever seen from an entire launch year. And it is reoccurring because contracts renew, relationships deepen, one contract becomes a track record that qualifies you for the next one. If you are in a service-based business and you have never typed government contracts for women-owned businesses into a search bar, do it before the end of the week. Number five, sponsorships. This one surprises women every time I teach it, and I want to change that because a sponsorship is a company paying you to reach your audience, not your personal audience, your business's audience, built and held inside a structure that can produce a media kit, a rate card, and documentation and documented reach metric that a brand can take back to their marketing department and justify the investment. Women in this room are building communities, email lists, Facebook groups, podcast listeners, summit audiences, social followings. Every one of those audiences have value to a company that wants to get in front of them. That's value. That value is money. And right now, most of you are giving that access away for free or trading it for affiliate commission that do not come close to what a direct sponsorship would pay. Sponsorship income does not depend on lenders, grant cycles, or government procurement timeline. It depends on your documented audience, your brand alignment, and your ability to present your platform as an asset worth investing in, which is exactly what a properly structured business with a media kit and documented reach can do. The first step is not cold emailing brands. The first step is knowing what your audience is worth and building the documentation that proves it. Audience size, engagement rates, open email rates, community growth. When you can hand a potential sponsor a one-page document that shows them the return on their investment, the conversation shifts from can you sponsor me to here's what your sponsorship investment buys. So let me put all five on the table at once because I want you to hear them as a system, not a menu. You see, cash flow is your foundation. Grants are your non repayable acceleration. Financing is your strategic leverage. Government contracting is your reoccurring anchor. And sponsorships are your audience becoming an asset. You see, a structured business does not rely on one. So let's bring this all the way back to why we're actually sitting in this room today. Redefining boundaries. That's the theme. And I want to give you my definition of it before I leave today. The boundary most women in this space needs to redefine is not the boundary between them and the world that doubts them, is the boundary between their personality and their property. You see, right now, for a lot of you, everything you've built lives inside you. Your following lives inside your personal handle. Your income lives inside your personal name. Your repetition is your only asset on the books. And that feels like influence. It looks like influence on a highlight reel, but it is actually exposure. If your personality is the entire business, then the business cannot survive a season where you cannot show up as the personality. If you have an illness, if you have burnout, a life event, a season of quiet obedience nobody claps for. Redefining that boundary means moving what you've built out of your personality and into your property, an entity, documentation, a holding or parent corporation with its own credible file. The structure that can hold weight even on the days you cannot get out of bed. Anointing attracts, architecture funds. Your influence got you in this room today. Structure is what will still be standing after we leave today and everyone goes back to their regular Tuesday. I don't say any of this to diminish your gift. I say it because I have personally watched too many gifted women build an entire empire on their own two shoulders and wonder years later why they're exhausted and still not fundable, still cannot get approved for the very capital their calling requires. You were never supposed to carry it alone on your back. You were supposed to build something that could carry itself and carry you too on the days you needed carrying. I want you to type this in the chat right now. Both lines. Anointing attracts and architecture funds. Don't forget that on the way to your next session. We win. Here's what I want you to walk out of this room holding on to. The anointing attracts, architecture funds. Vision boards do not get funded, businesses do. Your calling is not underfunded, it is understructured. If something in this talk named a gap for you that you already know was sitting there, I built a free resource for exactly this moment. It is called the Empire Roadmap and Checklist. It will show you precisely where your structure has a hole in it and exactly what you need to build to close it. Here's the link. So, or you can find me at my name, which is Dr. Linda Barnes, and that's on every platform. You see, faith laid the foundation you are already standing on today. That part you already did. Nobody in this room needs to be convinced their calling is real. Now go build the structure strong enough to hold everything faith has already promised you. I am Dr. Linda Barnes, the Success Doctor. Let's build your empire and legacy together.
Thank you, Dr. Linda. That was a wonderful presentation. We have a few questions from our audience. We will directly post it to your email and you can answer there. Thank you, Linda. Please stay on the backstage and join the next session, Dr. Linda.